Several years ago, a few friends and I decided to take a small holiday to Europe. While we were there, we stopped in some of the local tourist attractions and spent a day or two in every city. We came across this one small village, and they had an old building that looked like a convent or a monastery or something. So we all decided to go there and take the tour. And while we were walking around, inquiring minds wanted to know. That was me. So I asked about a particular staircase that led to a lower level, but it was closed off. And the tour guide, I remember her saying that led to a dead end. And so anyway, I didn't believe her, so we continued with the tour. Once we got outside, we started talking to some of the people around there, and they gave us some pretty bizarre stories. And one of the stories was that underneath that monastery, there were tunnels that led out towards the beach, further off down from the village, and to a location where it was not a very popular site to go swimming there. There was a lot of bush. There was a lot of rock there. So anyway, not too many people had gone to that area, but there was a bunch of big, large rocks and stones that were covering this one area. So we decided that we were going to go out there and take a look. So one of the locals took us there, and we looked around, and we found a spot where we could actually just kind of squeeze right through, and it took us into this big cave-like structure. So we decided that we were going to come back later on at night. We were bringing the fellow with us, our flashlights, and we're going to spend the night just looking around and see what we can find. We were pretty sure there was some hidden story, some history going on there that the tour guide didn't want us to know. So one of the fellas there who accompanied us that evening had told us a story that back several hundred years ago, those tunnels were created because they needed to funnel people through there. And they would leave from the beach area, and they would be put on ships, and they would be sent to other places. And so we asked, who were they, trafficking, or who were they funneling through there? And he said that a lot of nuns were being held there in the monastery, and some of them were being taken down to those tunnels. Apparently the nuns had become pregnant, and they were hidden there. And when the time came, they were taken and put on these ships and taken away. So we thought that's crazy. And, so that night we decided to go in, and we did. Approximately midnight, the four of us went to the beach, slipped in behind those rocks, and managed to squeeze our way in. So we walk in, and of course we get our flashlights up, and wow, you could see that it's a cave actually. And if you looked a little further down, you could see on your left there was another tunnel going to a different direction. So we all walked towards that way. And then, I remember saying, so how do we find our way back if we get lost in here? And one of the guys that was with us from that village said, I'm pretty familiar with, how things run here. As long as I know where my north, south, east, west is, we should be okay. So not a problem. So anyway, we start venturing off to the left. And as we're going around, things are just getting deeper and deeper. And then suddenly these other passageways start opening up on the sides. So I was getting a little worried. I'm a little claustrophobic. So, we just stood there for a little while. And then suddenly we hear this noise, like someone in the back. And then we turn around with our flashlights and we didn't see anybody. So the fellow that was with us said, I'm getting a little paranoid here. He says, there have been stories of the spirits of these nuns that still, go back and forth in these tunnels. He says one of the reasons why they shut that part of the monastery off was because they used to do the tours down there. And when people used to come down those stairs, as soon as they went past that opening into that tunnel area, suddenly some people would start feeling nausea, some people would pass out, other people started throwing up and get really sick. So they decided to shut that area off so nobody would go in there. So anyway, so I'm down there and we're looking around and we keep walking and we keep hearing these faint little cries. Now I'm starting to get a little bit freaked out here. Remember, I'm in a different country and stuff, and I really don't know what's going on in there, and I don't know my way around. I've lost my sense of north, south, east, west, so I'm hoping the fellow with us hasn't. So he assured us that he knew how we were going in and how we were going to get back out in case things turned bad. So we decided to leave a couple of flashlights on the ground just to light the way as we went forward. This way we could follow the light back, just in case. So while we're in there, we keep hearing these faint cries. We're like, what is going on? So we turn the flashlights, we keep looking around. Now the tunnels are getting deeper. I could count 6 of them so far. They went in different directions. And then all of a sudden, we all felt this sense of fear and gloom all of a sudden. It was almost like as if some heavy energy was pressing up against us. We started feeling very compacted there, like things were pressing up against us. I like to call it the ghost sandwich. You feel like you're getting pressed on every side and you're stuck in the middle. So it makes it hard to breathe. And then you start to feel a heaviness in your chest. So we're all kind of feeling this. We're like, maybe it's time for us to get out of here. And the fella that was with us, suddenly we couldn't find him for a couple of seconds. And we looked back and he's just sitting on the ground. And we're like, what's wrong? He's like, I feel sick. I said, okay, do you guys want to go back? And he's like, no. He says, I'll be fine. Let me just sit here for a couple of minutes. So we keep walking around and he's following behind us very slowly. And then we start to see the shadows darting back and forth. And this is where things got really interesting. At one point, I'm close to the wall. Now, everything's made of stone and carved out rock and whatnot. I don't see any bats or anything or any animals there or whatnot. I'm sure there was spiders and could be rats too. Who knows? I didn't see any. But all of a sudden, I felt like somebody walked behind me and ran their fingers across the back of my neck. That really freaked me out, and when I told the other guys, they just stopped and said, you know what, I think we've made a big mistake. We need to get out of here. So I agreed. I said, you know what, let's just go back to the hotel and, we'll talk about what we saw and heard tonight. Now, when we started making our way back, the fella that was with us started feeling like really sick. We're like, dude, you know what? We're going to have to carry you out pretty soon. And he's like, you know what? I'm very sick right now. He says, I'm not sure where we are. I'm like, what? He goes, at one point, he says, I knew where we were inside, where my bearings were, like where my north and south were. He says, but then I started feeling very sick. And now I can't tell if we have to go left or right. And we're like, oh man, no way. Oh, this is not going to be good. Oh, so anyway, we're there and we're like, well, what are we going to do? Let's try to think back and retrace our steps to see how we ended up getting in here. And let me tell you, that was one of the, I don't scare very easily, but I guess the fact, because it was dark in there and our flashlights, I don't know how long the batteries were going to last. And the fact, again, we were in a different country, just all of those things together was just a recipe for disaster. So we had seen shadows darting back and forth. We heard weird cries. Now we're stuck in this tunnel system and we don't know how to get out. And the one fella that does is really sick right now. So we start making our way back slowly, and as we're making our way back, we start to hear some voices. We all stopped. So we yelled out, "Hey, anyone down here? Can someone help us out? We're lost." And no one answered. So we keep walking forward. And we got to a point where, like a fork in the road, do we go left, do we go right? So one of my friends decided to go right, maybe about 30 feet. He goes, "Guys, I think this is the right way. I remember coming through here." Just as about we're going to walk into that right tunnel on the right-hand side, we see on the left a mist show up all of a sudden. And we turned around. We thought maybe it was dust or something. And there's this mist just floating around, and now we're really freaked out. One of my buddies actually started running away from us. We're like, "No, dude, don't do that. You're going to get lost in here. We won't be able to find you." So my buddy went back and grabbed him and said, "No, we're all going to stay together. We're not splitting up here." And this weird mist is just kind of lingering around in the background. And I tell you, like I said, I don't scare easily, but I was really, really, really scared that night. So we got our sick buddy with us there, and he's slowly following us. He's trying to make sense of things, and we don't know where we're going. I'll tell you this much, we spent 4 hours walking around and no sight of that exit. I'm starting to think that we're done. It's probably about 4:30 in the morning now. No one's going to hear us. What do we do? So we walked back and we decided to go the opposite route. Now we're walking back, and we keep hearing these faint cries, and what is going on? And then suddenly, right by us, you heard these voices kind of go whiz by your head, just kind of flash right by you, and you could hear these weird, strange voices and sounds. And I'm thinking we're walking into a big mess here. But we have no choice. We keep walking forward. As we're walking forward, we get to the end of this one tunnel, and it's all sealed off. There is some rock and stone there, and there is actually some wood planks. And I'm like, "Guys, so we're done, hey? There's no way out of here. We gotta now retreat and go back." I don't know. I don't know what we're gonna do. So my buddy says, "You know what? We're a bunch of strong guys. Let's see if we can move some of this rock around and start prying off some of these planks." And we did. All 4 of us started pushing on some of the rock, and a little bit of a mini landslide happened there. And we managed to move enough rock out of the way that we can pull off a couple of boards, and we did. And what lay behind on the other side was really interesting. The tunnel continued, actually, so there was hope. So we both climbed over the rocks first, went in there. A couple of us decided to turn our flashlights off to conserve the battery life. So we both go in there first, we start looking around, and then we start seeing pieces of old clothing, pottery, just small broken things everywhere. And I'm like, I think we might have stumbled upon a spot where these people were this was their probably last area they were in before they were taken away. And so anyway, the rest of the guys joined us. They come through, and as we're walking through, we keep feeling this the sense of doom is waiting for us, down at the end of this tunnel. And we're like, I don't think we're heading towards the right direction anyway. But so we get there, and then over onto the left, there's a door. And I'm like, you know what? Let's give this a try. We'll open it up. The door wouldn't open. So we started kicking at the door. What we didn't know was that on the other side of the door was some more rock. So finally we broke the door, and we could see through some of the cracks in between the stones there a small metal staircase, a winding staircase. That was a staircase that led us up to where we were the day before, where we were taking the tour around. So I thought, guys, you know what? It's almost 6 in the morning. Whatever strength we have left, do you guys want to start pushing through some of this stuff? Enough that we can squeeze by here. At least we can get up those stairs and go up to that monastery. And, from there we can find our way out. So we started doing that. We started pushing some of the rock away. And then one of my friends says to me, goes, hey, where's so-and-so? One of the locals from the village that was with us, the sick fella. He's not there. We're like, what? Uh-oh. Don't tell me we gotta head back now and find this guy. So we start looking around and calling out for him. We got the flashlights out. We're looking around. We hear nothing. We're like, oh my God, don't tell me this guy passed out somewhere. Oh, so anyway, the guys decided to wait there. Nobody was going to go up yet. I took a flashlight. I started walking around. And as I'm walking around, I'm calling his name out, and I hear him moaning back like he's in pain. But when I put the flashlight in that area, there was nobody there. And I'm like, well, I just heard him calling from there. So I put up on the other side, and I'm looking around, and I hear him. I'm like, dude, where are you? And then I look over, and he's huddled underneath the small little gap that's in between another tunnel entrance and some fallen stone. And he's hiding under there. I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you? And he looks really scared, and his eyes are wide open. He's looking at me, and I'm like, dude, what are you looking at? And then he's still looking at me, and he kind of looks off over my shoulder, and I'm like, what? I turn around, I put the flashlight, and there's a nun standing there, and she, boom, quickly disappears. Man, I tell you, I haven't run so fast. I said, dude, get your butt over here, man. I said, we're not sticking around. I found a way out. I grab his arm, we start running, and we met up with the rest of the guys. We pushed him through. I was actually the last one through that area, and I looked back, and I can tell you, man, there was something in that tunnel. So I go through. We're now all on the other side of this door. We slowly go up the stairs. Not sure if there was security there or not, so we had to be very quiet. We go up the spiral staircase, a metal staircase, and there we are. We're up in that monastery again. And I remember the layout of the place. So I said, we're going to go, and we're going to walk this way. So we're slowly walking over, but we could hear these weird noises coming from the bottom of that stairwell. And my friend says to me, says, you know what, we left that wide open. Tomorrow morning, when they come in here, they're going to see that that rock's been taken away and that door's been broken, obviously, right? And someone's going to be in trouble. So we just kept walking and said, let's just get out of here, go back to the hotel. So we go through the monastery, we make our way outside. As we're walking outside, our sick friend starts to come to life slowly, and he's feeling a lot better. And I'm like, what happened? He goes, I'm telling you, man, he says, I don't want to tell you guys, but there was a lot of stories of spirits down there. Some people had passed away. He said, but there was this one story of a nun that actually disappeared in there. She got lost in the tunnels. And this is another reason why they had closed the tunnel. He says, I don't want to tell you guys that first because I wanted you to, have your fun and go in and explore and stuff. But he goes, man, I was really scared. He says, this one nun has never been found. And he said, when you guys started walking forward and you found that way out, he says, I looked over to the side and I saw her standing. He goes, I thought she was going to grab me. He says, I just hid underneath those rocks there and hoping that, she would leave. And I said, good thing I came back for you, right? So anyway, so we make our way outside. And we decided to go back onto the beach. And then we went around to that area where we had, slipped through between the rocks. And guess what? All the rocks were in place, but they were tight. You couldn't fit a piece of paper in between there. Okay? So here's the weird thing. We all, four of us, managed to squeeze in between there. Now 6 or 7 hours had gone by, the sun was starting to come up. We go back and take a look. That tunnel is actually locked, closed. You can't get in there. That really freaked us out. So we go back to the hotel, get a couple of hours of sleep. We got up, had something to eat. We're packing our stuff, and as we're leaving, we hear some commotion going on outside. So we go out there, and our friend comes to us. He says, "Guys, you're never going to believe this." He says, "You know, what happened here this past night," says, "I've said nothing to nobody. I don't want any trouble." He goes, "But when they came in this morning to open up the monastery to let the tourists in, they saw the rocks and stuff that had fallen, and they found the door broken, obviously, so they called security." Well, they went down there, and they're thinking that whatever was in there has found its way out. It's now on the loose out on the village. And I said, well, that's not good, because a lot of people are going to get freaked out. And, you know, it was us that was in there, right? He says, no, he says, we can't say anything, man. I said, no, I said, we have to say something. My conscience is going to bother me. So off we went, and we went to the spot where you purchased the tickets. We asked to speak to a manager or whoever was in charge. And this fella comes over, and he was kind of a big guy, and we're like, you know, we're probably going to get in trouble for this, but hope we don't end up in jail or something. So we told him what we did, and he looked at us, he said, here, come with me. And we thought, well, this is it, man. He said, I'm going to bring you into the security office for a second. He says, I need to show you something, and I need to talk to you. So we all sat down, turned the computer monitor around, and he said, watch this. He says, you are the guys that are coming through in that tunnel. You can see the door being pushed in. You can see the rocks being pushed aside. So you managed to escape from there, pretty much. We're like, yeah. So we're really sorry. We don't mean any harm. Just we got lost. He says, well, I'm glad you guys are okay. He says, keep watching the screen. We're watching the screen. And all of a sudden, you see this wispy image, an outline. And you see it coming through the door. And then you see it going up the stairs. And this was caught from a security camera on the upper level. And as soon as it came up the stairs, it made its way into a room. And once it got near that room, it just vanished. It just, like as if the ground opened up and swallowed it. And we're all looking at this going, oh my God. And he's like, you guys opened the doorway, literally, for whatever's been in there for these hundreds of years. It has escaped.